Hey, we're here and we're back with Mr. Adam Barney, and his website is adamwbarney.com. And Adam is an energy coach who helps emerging and executive leaders stay energized, make forward progress, and thrive with optimism. So he's an energy coach, and he also has something called the Google Ads Profit Consultant. So he's got like two sides of the coin. He's a coach, a speaker, an author. Adam helps companies spend $20K plus a month on Google Ads and eliminate waste and scale profitably. And he has a very excellent book called Make Your Own Glass Half Full, The Path to Empowered Optimism and Autonomy. And all that combined means that we have so many possible routes we can take in our conversation, so much to talk about. So, Mr. Adam, glad to be speaking with you.
Great to be here, Robert. I'm excited to jump in today in this exciting conversation.
Yeah, time to jump in, time to be excited. And as far as what excites you, what's your current focus and passion? What just has you so energized?
Oh my gosh, it has to be in the midst of all the craziness in the world, just the soundtrack that I've had playing today. Honestly, that's what's got my battery charged, and that tends to be what my own method of building that energy and keeping that moving is actually.
Okay, and what does that mean? Like, what soundtrack is playing? What words are going through your head these days?
You know what I mean? It's about resilience. Resilience is really the word of the day, and the word of at least 2025 to date in my book. It's about staying, marching on the center of that path. And, this morning of all things, I was actually pretty inspired by an old Pete Seeger song about, what did you learn in school today? Which is a pretty deep cut to get into. But it gets into, the history of what we've dealt with in this country. And it's just one of those things that can keep you energized and accountable, as music can in most cases.
Well, great. And what does that lead to as far as what you're up to? Like, are you working on clients or working on projects? What's half done at the moment?
It's funny, on the coaching side, I was actually just spending time updating some things on my website. I know you mentioned my background a little bit, right? But, I'm actually with the Google Ads consulting side of thing. I finally just, for the first time, stood up a VSL, a video sales letter, and launched that out into the world. So those are the things that are both keeping me busy during the day and honestly, maybe keeping me up a little bit at night.
Well, and you're in the right profession for that, right? Because even since Google Ads or AdWords, like they called it when it began, ever since the beginning of that, it's just been such a scary beast, right? Whenever that niche even comes up, you think like, okay, we need a guy like Adam to run our ads for us, because if you're just jumping in like it's a recipe for, it makes it seem simple, right? Oh, you bid on some keywords and you make your creatives and you just, you let it go. But then it's like, it requires constant maintenance and it requires a lot of like thinking and strategy and burning through ad money. And it seems really scary and overwhelming. So to help us allay our fears, if someone says, all right, well, this Google Ads thing, I know I can't do it myself. I need help. Now I need to know if Mr. Adam is the guy for me. Like, who are your people and what's sort of the strategy when you jump into Google Ads for someone?
I mean, my history, Robert, goes back to working across 10, 20, $30 million a year in digital marketing spend across, Fortune 50 clients. And all of that experience comes into play when I jump into any ad audit, right? And typically the customers I like to work with, they're in the retail realm, they're in the CPG realm, they're in the financial services realm. But really, it's anyone who's spending over $20,000 a month or more on Google Ads. And those are the people where you can find those corners of where the money bleed is. There's a lot of talk. I was actually reading something yesterday that came out of Bloomberg about, how there's this huge focus with the AI updates in Google, as well as just across the board. That's adjusting the way that search engine results page resolves itself. And it's incredibly impactful. A lot of the conversation, though, has been focused around the SEO, the organic impact. I actually think that there's a bigger impact to the paid side of things within Google Ads. So when you talk about the real estate on that search engine results page, it's shrunk over time. My history goes back to If you want to go back to, music once again, the days of Yahoo calling their platform Panama. So sing a little David Lee Roth as you go through that, right? Getting back into that sort of a world. But that was an open bid platform, which is incredible to think about. That was the infancy of this space, and how it's evolved over the years is incredible, both with, you know, paid ads. You always used to be able to force your top ads into your ads into the top 3 spots with bidding. Then you added in the layers of complexity with the connection to ad copy and landing page and that quality score impact. That shifted things. Then you start to see 15 years ago, Google rolls in maps and rolls in additional information. We're just at a different place now, where when typically you could probably get 3, 5, maybe even 7 ads on the front page of a Google search, now you're much more limited. That's a hugely competitive market. So how do you take your money out of those areas, away from those areas that aren't performing or aren't, logical to your business anymore, to focus and gain that page visibility in those really key areas where searchers are raising their hands to get to that information that you're providing?
Well, very nice. So we want to get in front of those searchers, and you bring a lot of really good points that there's always some new change, right? There's always something new to catch up on. And then it seems like as the internet has evolved, they've just kind of crowded in more and more paid ad slots, right? You do a Google search and there's like paid ad here, paid ads there. And someone like you or me, who like we're internet geeks, right? We're always on the computer. We can tell the difference between like a sponsored block or not, but like the average person, like they don't see the difference, right? They're just like,
Right.
I did a search, I see some links. And so it's a crazy world we live in now, where like you hear this all the time, that like you need to be having some kind of paid ads, because the average person, like even if you're number 1 in SEO, you're like number 3, number 4, right? All these other ads will crowd you out. And so when you do these audits you speak of, when you get a new client and like, of course they've tried some stuff, maybe they had someone else running ads and they like that stopped for whatever reason, like what do you see as far as what they set up, and like what are they missing? Are they missing this bridge you mentioned about from the ad to the landing page? Are they not tracking? Like where's the hurt these days?
It can be in any of those areas, honestly, Robert. And that's why it's a fun thing. It's what energizes me to go in there, open up the hood, and of course do that. I'm not an agency that steps in there. Agencies, I think the typical way they come into this sort of an approach is they're going to say, oh, you can spend more and get more. Where I'm saying, no, let's really dig in under the hood and get to the areas that aren't working. It's a deep dive diagnostic that uncovers where those ad dollars are being wasted, and those leaks are in there, whether it's buying keywords that aren't relevant to your business, or you've got ads out there that are outdated and haven't been updated in 12 months. Those are places where you can bleed, or there's a set of campaigns that don't have the right UTM tracking or whatever your analytics tracking on them, and you're losing that conversion data. It's really taking a magnifying glass to it as you open up the hood and peel back the layers of the onion to get to what's not working within the campaigns.
And as far as like what's not working, do you see anything that rears its ugly head again and again? Like you open it up and you see all these different things, but is there like one thing that stands out from the rest?
There is one thing that stands out, and it's about delineating your top performing keywords, top performing sections of your programs within Google Ads from the long tail that isn't performing. Because when you can optimize what's working to a higher level and strip away, some of that fat that's there, your program becomes more lean. That's where that true efficiency comes in. That's what opens up that increase in ROI. And that's something you can do fast. Not to go back to SEO again with the way the search engine landing page has evolved, but the paid search has always been the place where you can juice your listings and you can, again, push your way up there. If you focus your dollars in those areas that are returning, you're not going to be spending more. You're just going to be getting more efficiency on the back end.
Well, 80/20, right? And on a recurring basis by saying like, hey, here's what's performing and here's what's not working, and kind of keep on strengthening your strengths and then throw out what's not, and keep on iterating from there. And
Right.
as far as like, it's always fun on a podcast to hear about success stories, right? When someone came to Mr. Adam W. Barney and they said, hey, help. We don't know what we're doing. We need someone to get in here and dig through this data. And you went and fixed things up. So does a cool story come to mind as far as the magical transformation you perform?
Let's go. Let's go there. One recent client that I've worked with in the last year was a national CPG brand that was spending over $60,000 a month on Google Ads, and they were under the impression that their performance had plateaued. They were getting decent return, but they were not scaling up. So they brought me in for an ad audit, which of course let me frame that by the fact that this is a money back guarantee, right? If I don't find that waste, you're not going to pay. And it's about unplugging those leaks. But, they brought me in for an audit, and within the first few days, I honestly uncovered over $12,000 a month that was being wasted in terms of spend. Their brand campaigns were cannibalizing the organic traffic. The match types were too broad. They were bidding aggressively on those low conversion, low margin terms, and they didn't realize it. So they made a few changes and saw a nice 23% lift in ROAS with no extra budget required. And that's the kind of clarity and control that this audit delivers. And again, if you don't find those leaks, you're not on the obligation to pay, which is the big winner. But also I'm stepping in with my own experience working across clients like Goodyear Tires and the TJX companies and Bank of America, and understanding when you're that huge client and you've got so many different things going on when you're spending that much money, there's definitely corners that aren't working that you don't need to include within there. That perspective is what I really think is so key to bring to the table.
And that's refreshing that it might just require some amount of reconfiguration. Like you kind of differentiated yourself there between you and some of these agencies that say, oh, well, if you 5X your ad spend, well, then we'll get some results. And you're like, well, hey, there might just be this. You mentioned the kind of low margin, low performing where the money's being wasted, and you take that out and put it into something that is working. That's more of what we want. And so as far as sort of separating someone who needs you versus someone who don't, right? That's what we want, is to specialize and to say, hey,
Yep.
Here's my people, this company size, this amount of budget, versus if someone's not there, that's okay, right? They can still like learn from you and still get the advice. But as far as like getting your actual one-on-one help, you'd say, well, here's exactly who my person is. And so what's that criteria? Like what kind of size or ad spend does the company need to be in order to have this conversation with you?
It really starts simply at if you're spending over $20,000 a month on Google Ads, that's where you can bring me in. If you're no matter where you come from, I don't want to have someone who's spending $20,000 on Google Ads who's not tracking and doesn't have a tracking system in place to understand what those KPIs are that I'm trying to hit and trying to improve on. But if you're spending $20,000 or more a month, upwards, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, or even more a month on Google Ads, head to my website, input your information, and let's go. Let's sign up for an audit. And it gets into the way that I coach leaders as well, honestly, Robert. It's the core sort of framework of reset, rewire, and reignite. It's the same thing, whether it's about these ad audits or it's about the coaching, because you reset, you audit, you figure out where your money is going on the Google Ads side. You figure out on the leadership side where your energy is going. Your habits and those hidden drains come into play. When you rewire, you install those new systems. And on the coaching side, it's about rhythm, reflection, and momentum. That's the same with these ad audits. And then you reignite. You do it scalably with clarity, confidence, and that all bleeds together in the way that I like to help enable both the ad audit side of my business as well as the coaching side of my business. And I think that gets unlocked through, it's been unlocked by running these ad audits, because I get to work with those, leaders who see the efficiency we can gain in terms of their Google Ads performance and return. And then it opens up this perspective on, oh, wait, this applies to how I work as a leader as well.
I like that. And it's very logical, right? Is you figure out what's not working, you break it down, and then you build it back up, and then you continue forward. And so that's a good transition here, right? Because we've been talking so far about Google Ads and what you can do for someone who is spending 20K per month and they're already tracking. That way you can detect a problem. And that landing page to find out more about how you're probably losing 30% without realizing it is adamwbarney.com. And we'll circle back to some links at the end here, but I want to have some time to transition into what you do about coaching leaders, right? Because my understanding is that you're an energy coach and you help leaders kind of defeat some of these myths about burnout, and you help them bounce back. You have the glass half full blueprint. So as far as these kind of transferable skills that you mentioned, which is great, right? Because you think, well, you apply it to like the data and this like tangible problem in front of me versus something more intangible is like, well, why am I unsatisfied, or why is my team dysfunctional? And so what the heck is an energy coach anyway?
I mean, I wish, Robert, I could say it was about mystical stones and sorcery, whether it's through the leadership coaching or the ad audit side of things. And if we could wave a magic wand and fix everything, then that would be great. But it's about how I've worked with hundreds of leaders, and those are founders, executive leaders, and kept them energized, make forward progress, and lead with optimism rather, without sacrificing well-being or values. And that's all done through mindset mastery, energy systems, and one of the key things is strategic accountability that sticks. It's not, none of this is woo-woo, right? It's about what keeps great leaders in the game long term. I've been through those tough meetings. I've had those bad leaders. I've been through the burnout, and I've seen firsthand what happens when leaders lose their spark. That's where energy comes into play. And we all have a natural energy rhythm that we follow. If we can optimize that energy rhythm, it can unlock those doors to greater success and greater leadership.
So, like, I'm curious about what an energy rhythm is, because, like, it seems like a lot of the things that can fix this up are like simple solutions, aren't they? Just have the meeting, have the conversation, figure out your goals, write it down, have a coach, all these things that they're easy to do, but they're also easy not to do. And then when things are working, it seems kind of tedious, right? It's kind of like if you're in good health, you don't notice it. But if you're in bad health, it's like, well, hey, maybe I should have exercised. Maybe I should have eaten better, drank more water. But then it's easy to take these things for granted if they're working, especially because the solution is simple but not easy, right? Things take dedication and perseverance. And like you mentioned that keyword
Yep.
resilience earlier. But I'm curious about this idea you mentioned here of energy rhythm, because what comes to mind there is maybe people say, well, I work better in the mornings, or I work better like with people or alone. But that's just all these wild guesses. So as far as like energy rhythm, like what is that? How does that help us?
Yeah. So, you hear, Robert, so many entrepreneurs in the world are mentioned, they say they wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning because that's when they can find their focus time. That's not the way it looks for everybody. Everyone has different times during the day when their energy is up. There's this stereotypical way that, after lunch, we have a lull, and that's driven by what we've had for lunch. But not everyone works that way. Some people are energized after lunch. And, I think one way to frame this really in an accessible way is burnout doesn't always look like collapse. Some of the most successful leaders, successful people I've worked with have this layer of the onion we pull back where they're secretly miserable. And that can cross not just the professional realm, that can be a holistic thing to unlock. And they're not crashing, they're stuck in this low battery loop. They're overcommitted, they're overstimulated, they're underfulfilled, and they've even optimized for productivity, but not energy. I help build those new rhythms and build those boundary systems and mindset shifts that give their energy back, which changes the game.
And how do we get our energy back? Because you think if you're kind of stuck in low energy, like maybe you need to like offload different tasks, or close some of those commitments and not be spread so thin, or maybe throw it all out and be in a different industry or a different business, and it's different for everyone. But can you give us some examples? Like if someone has low energy, like what kinds of things might get that energy back?
It's such an individual level. It is such an individual thing, Robert. As I mentioned earlier, music is what drives my energy up. Everyone is unique in terms of what picks them up. Is it going to take a 5 minute walk outside? Is it getting, downstairs and pulling out the vacuum? Is it going and having walking around to the coffee shop around the corner and getting another coffee? Those are the different things. Or is it, having a 5 minute conversation, catch up with someone who you don't work with, that's a friend, that gives you that boost to bring your energy back up there. But I like to uncover what those things are through visioning work. It's so critical because it's at an individual level. In that uniqueness is a deep value point. But when you can do more of the things that raise your energy, that's transformative.
Well, I can see the parallels here between the ad spend mindset versus the energy mindset, right? It's about experimentation, looking at some results, and like maybe you go through iterations of there's some randomness, but then you say, hey, if this is working and this is not working, then you optimize slightly, knowing that there's no such thing as getting to 100% perfectionism, and you just kind of figure out what works for you. And you're just giving me these flashbacks to, like, sometimes I do make that phone call and I do get energized, and it definitely depends on the person that I'm calling. I can't just call any old person, but then it's like sometimes that gets me energized. And right after this podcast, because you said it, I will be taking a walk, because that does it's counterintuitive, right? You think, oh,
Right.
well, my human body's a battery. Well, no, you take a walk and you kind of get the fresh air and you get your energy back. And so it's like when in the old timey days when the police would be chasing a criminal on horseback, right? They'd ride for an hour, they'd stop and walk for an hour, ride for an hour, and it seems like you're more slow going, but then in the long term you actually get farther because it's just the averaging, right? The consistency. And
Right.
so we do want that, but if we're stuck in our own thinking patterns, habits, then it's really tough to break out of that shell. And sure, you could read some of those articles that we just laughed about where they say wake up at 4 a.m., but that's only one of many tools in the toolbox. And so someone
Yep.
could use the visioning that you speak of to have this outside perspective and say, well, hey, have you tried this and this? Well, let's do more of that and revisit that. And so how does someone take you up on that? We mentioned how there's the Google ads offer at adamwbarney.com. We know that there's an excellent book called Make Your Own Glass Half Full: The Path to Empowered Optimism and Autonomy. But if someone says, I've got all these ideas, I've got all these possibilities, but I need to take some action, I need Mr. Adams' help, how can they contact you for some of this?
Uh, through those channels, you can email me, adam@adamwbarney.com, or find me on LinkedIn. I'm active there, and that's the best place to look me up, connect with me, reach out on these challenges, and see where there's an opportunity to help.
Very cool. And I find myself using LinkedIn more and more of just checking up on someone or following them, or just kind of seeing like, okay, like what did he post recently? And is that something that I want to take the next step with? And something that I noticed about your profile in particular is like there's a bell icon. All these years I never noticed like there's a bell on someone's profile. So if you really say, hey, this guy Adam W. Barney, I really want to know what he's up to, but I just don't have the time at the moment. But let me subscribe. I can't believe I didn't notice this till just now. There's a bell icon on everyone's LinkedIn profile. And what's great about this, if you say, hey, this is a priority for me. I'm unhappy with either my Google ads or my current energy. I'm worried about this burnout, this stress. You can go to linkedin.com/in/Adam W. Barney and click that bell icon. And you know what? Worst case, if you keep seeing the pop-ups on your phone when he updates, you can always unbell him. But for the moment, this gets him on your radar. And then if it comes time to click the message button and say, once you have like 30 seconds, you say, hey, I liked what you had to say about getting your energy right and getting your routine right and not being overcommitted and just kind of being happier, more fulfilled, more productive in a good way, working with your team and getting to this mystical scaling problem solve that we want to do. So that's Adam W. Barney on LinkedIn. You mentioned that email address, adam@adamwbarney. And I want to, before I let you go, make sure that we kind of do a quickie sales pitch of this make your own glass half full book, because that whole glass half full, like there's like 10 different stories, metaphors just in that whole idea right there. But what does it mean for your glass to be half full, and who is that book for?
So one of the rare ways every human in this world tends to be classified is either as a glass half full or a glass half empty person, right, Robert?
Right.
I basically say, through those tools of optimism and autonomy, throw those glasses over your shoulders, grab your own glass and pitcher, make your own glass half full. That's led me through the dark days that I've faced in my corporate career. I was laid off twice. I picked up the pieces and built businesses coming from those experiences. That resilience is the biggest piece of the puzzle here for so many in this world, not only to just succeed, but thrive and make change in a positive direction.
Wonderful. And we want that, right? When you say, well, the glass that's been poured for me is half full, you sound kind of helpless, right? You sound like you're not in control of your own destiny, versus saying, I don't need to let this label define me, right? I don't need a label to say, well, you're an introvert, or you're shy, or you can't do this. Like, you can do anything that you want. You just have to work at it and study and have a plan and have people help you along the way. And so that's an excellent concept you have here, Mr. Adam W. Barney, is make your own glass half full. Throw away that glass that's already there and fill up your own glass using empowered optimism and autonomy. So we mentioned that book by Adam Barney on Amazon. We mentioned adamwbarney.com if you need help with that Google ad spend. And then the place where he really wants you to go, that way you can hang out, you can interact, you can send a message, is linkedin.com/in/AdamWBarney. And before I let you go here, Mr. Adam, it's time for the scary part of the show, where I put you on the spot and I ask for a quote or lesson that has served you that you can pass on to us. So what do you have for a quote or lesson?
One of the most powerful lessons I teach is this: the best leaders don't just pour into others, they plug in themselves first. You can't give your best if you're running on empty. Plug in, power up, and then go light others up.
Wonderful. You can't pour from an empty cup, as they say. So let's think about that as we add Mr. Adam W. Barney on LinkedIn, and we go to adamwbarney.com to get a free ad profitability audit and uncover hidden leaks in your campaigns, guaranteed, or you don't pay. Go there right now. You'll love it. As Mr. Adam Barney says, he's worked with Bank of America, Goodyear, and TJX. So he gives you this money back audit. He scans your Google Ads account for waste and missed opportunities. Then there's the Profit Maximizer, where they rebuild and restructure your campaigns for scale. And then the third and final step is the Scale and Multiply protocol, where they reinvest saved budget into what works, scaling your ROAS efficiently. So that's adamwbarney.com, Adam Barney on LinkedIn. Go there, follow him, send a message, and get that conversation started. If you need help with Google Ads or Energy Coach, he does both. They're interrelated. He's very skilled at it. From Boston, Massachusetts, Adam Barney, glad to be speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Robert. Plug in, let's go.
All right.